Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Oh, there you are. I was hoping I'd cross paths with you today. I'd like to invite you to visit the Storywell. It's a place where storytellers of all stripes gather. From improv performers to authors, screenwriters to playwrights, we all tell stories. But we're not here to talk about craft. We're here to make something out of nothing. Each episode of the podcast, your host, that's me, sits down with a creative person, and based on a series of random prompts, we get elements that we make into a story. Will it be a noir novel about King Kong? Or a Broadway musical about JFK? Even we don't know. That's the fun part. But what do you get out of this, besides a good time with fun people? Simple. The idea is then yours. That's right. Whatever we come up with, we give it away for anyone to use however they'd like, no strings attached. It's like each episode comes with a free prize inside. The Storywell with Kyle Olson. We'll save you a seat at the table.
Hey Pete, ever wonder what Steven Spielberg's favorite film is?
You know, Andy, I've heard he loves classics like Lawrence of Arabia, Meet Me in St. Louis.
Imagine chatting with him about why those films resonate with him so much.
That's exactly what we do on our podcast, Movies We Like. We've had incredible guests like actress Dee Wallace, cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt, director Steve Miner, and former Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft.
They share their favorite films and the impact they've had on their careers, offering fascinating insights into the craftsmanship and storytelling techniques that make these movies so special.
If you're curious about the magic behind the scenes, subscribe to Movies We Like from True Story FM on your favorite podcast app. New episodes are released on the fourth Monday of each month with early access for our members.
Join us on Movies We Like as we explore the movies we all like with the people who make them.
And Stephen, our people will call your people. Let's make this happen, puppy.
Subscribe today.
Hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed. Just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Make Me a Nerd. I'm Mandy Kaplan, a mainstream mom whose mission it is to explore the world of nerdery, meaning science fiction, fantasy, comic books, games. No one has convinced me to LARP yet, but I really would like to try. I am really have been resistant to all of these things my whole life, even though they've been around me and all my loved ones are into all these things. I've always thought, not for me, not my thing. Now, they are my thing. I have really been enjoying the journey, and I am absolutely in awe of how many times I'm watching something totally mainstream, like The Housewives or The Bachelor, and these things get referenced, and now I'm understanding these references. So good for me, good for nerds, good for geek culture. I'm so happy it's all becoming blended in one big happy family. That's my hope. I'm not going to burst into song, but I am going to introduce my very special guest today. This is a first. I don't know this person in the real world whatsoever, but she was referred to me by the Geek Girl Authority, Audrey Kearns, so I know I'm in good hands with my guide this week. She is a writer for several sites and the managing editor for Geek Girl Authority. It is Melody McCune. Hi.
Hello. Nice to finally meet you.
Pretty posy face. You as well. Thank you so much for saying yes to this.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to make you a nerd.
Well, yeah, you chose something I had never even heard of, Wynonna Earp.
Mm-hmm.
And you are, according to Audrey, quite the expert. So you have a lot to live up to.
Oh, I don't know if I would say I'm an expert, but there are definitely the fan base for the show. They're called Earpers, and they're incredibly loyal and dedicated to the show, and they've rewatched it 20,000 times. So I don't know if I'm at that level, but I'm pretty damn close. So
you're Earpy.
Yeah, I'm Earpy.
You're a little bit Earpy. So before we dive into what Wynonna Earp, is it Wynonna? It is.
Wynonna, yeah.
Wynonna. What is your history with all things geek? How deep does your
Ooh.
nerd river run?
How deep does my nerd river run? It's pretty deep. So I feel like everybody says this, but my nerd journey started with Star Wars. I remember my dad introduced me to Star Wars when I was a kid. He had the original trilogy on VHS, and I remember watching it like just all the time. And that was kind of my jumping off point. And then I just took it from there. I just started diving into all of these different genre shows, and it was my way of escaping.
Mm-hmm.
And, 27 years later, I'm still here going strong, still nerding out, still being a geek.
So I think you are a bit younger than I am because I'm very, very old. So what were the things?
I'm in my 30s. Yeah.
Oh, good Lord, you could be my daughter. We have to stop this right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Patricia, could you bring me a drink, honey? I have to look back like there really is a Patricia. But yeah. So what were the other things that were popular at the time? Because when you say Star Wars trilogy, I know what that means from 70s and 80s, but you were more of a 90s kid.
90s baby, yeah.
Okay.
What else was really popular? I was also really into, I watched a lot of shows on like Cartoon Network.
Mhm.
There was a lot of like nerdy stuff there. I remember watching, my sisters and I were really into Sailor Moon, which was an anime.
Anime, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I watched a little bit of anime too, like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z. What else? I did watch some network TV, but I was primarily in like anything that was on like Cartoon Network.
Okay.
Just animated shows. That was my thing as a kid.
Great. And then were you also a collector of toys and memorabilia and all of that? Or you just watched and enjoyed?
I feel like every 90s kid is going to say Beanie Babies, but I did have Beanie Babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember my dad was like, don't take the tags off. They could be worth something someday. I was like, but I want to play with them. So I was like, no.
Right. So
that, yeah.
We got to trendy toys pretty fast. And when you were referred to me, I stalked you on social media like a good host, just doing my research.
As one does. Yeah.
I friended you on everything. Mm-hmm. And I saw on Facebook that you have a sister named
Harmony. Yeah.
I had a Cabbage Patch doll named Harmony Melody.
Oh, that's cute.
It's meant to be.
Yeah. This was meant to be. It's funny because sometimes people don't believe me. I'm like, no, I have a sister named Harmony.
Yeah. That's great. Are you older or younger?
Older. Yeah, she's like 9 years younger.
Oh, wow. Okay. And did you share these nerdy interests?
Yeah. So I grew up with my sister Harmony and then our sister Brianna, and all three of us love Sailor Moon. So that was like our thing. But we did grow up watching all of those shows together.
Yeah. My sister was a big nerd, D&D.
I'm not that nerdy.
Okay. Yeah. She was really into all this stuff. It was really the inspiration for launching this podcast. It's like,
oh, cool.
I don't know anything. She's a huge gamer and fantasy novel reader and all of it. And I was just like, I don't get it. I want to get it. But we shared no interests as a kid. But now that we're talking sisters, Wynonna and her sister, oh God, I know the name, Waverly.
Waverly is a nice segue.
Show is really, thank you. I enjoy segues, Melody. This show, Wynonna Earp, is really about this sibling love and
yes, 100%.
The burden or the curse they inherit. So because I had never heard of it, I would like to share what Wikipedia says about it. Wynonna Earp is a supernatural Western television series developed by Emily Andress and based on the comic book series by Bo Smith. Melanie Scrofano portrays the titular character. I love the word titular. Who doesn't? The great-great-granddaughter of legendary lawman Wyatt Earp, who returns to her hometown of Purgatory near the Canadian Rockies, where she battles revenants, the reincarnated outlaws that Wyatt killed. Okay, so that gives everybody a sense, although,
yeah,
I take real umbrage that the description doesn't capture the tone of the show at all. You know?
Yeah, I agree. It's very straightforward, and this show is anything but. So yeah.
Now, what brought you to the show? What gave you the love of this show? Did you read the novels?
I did not read the comics, but funnily enough, I didn't start watching the show until 2017, and it was actually Audrey who asked if I wanted to recap it, and she thought it would be a show that I would like. And because the person who was originally recapping left the site for some reason, and it was already kind of in the middle of season 2, so I had to hurry up. I had to play catch up, and that before I could start writing about it. And then I was like, you know what? She's right. I really do like this show. So yeah, I kind of fell into it just because I was asked to, really.
Through work. Okay.
Through work, yeah. So that's my Wynonna origin story.
And tonally, I had no idea what to expect going in. I actually thought it would be ultra violent, and it's not at all.
No,
but it is very akin to another show I fell in love with through my podcast, Supernatural. I feel they have a similar.
I never thought to compare them, but they do. And I think I could be totally wrong, but I think Emily Andros actually worked on Supernatural at some point. I think I could be wrong. So I hope no Earpers out there, come knocking on my door. But my comparison to Wynonna, I tell people that it's a lot like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know.
I've never seen that.
Oh, I mean, it was very inspired by that show. I mean, it's very in that it's very campy. It's very kind of silly. There's, that singular heroine who has this curse, and she has to save the world, and the town she lives in is riddled with all kinds of supernatural creatures and evil. So I guess that's what I would say is the comparison. And the humor is very similar. It's very like quippy and snappy and lots of one-liners.
Yes, I really laughed out loud many times as I watched, which I didn't expect. I truly, most things that I've tried on for the podcast, I'm like, I've seen clips, or, I know what that is. This was like, I was
completely new, huh?
A newborn baby. I had no concept. So I went in totally blind, and we started with season 3, episode 7.
Yeah, I thought about doing the beginning. The only reason why I didn't is because I think the show, like season 1 is good, but I think it takes a little bit to find its footing. So I wanted to show you some episodes that kind of encapsulated the humor and the heart and the drama that I think are like the best elements of the show, and when they're all working together really well.
Well, I'm going to throw you and all my listeners for a loop, because everybody knows me to do the least amount of work humanly possible for something like this. But I was so behind the 8 ball when I jumped into season 3, episode 7. All my questions for you were like, wait, who is this guy? Wait, how are they related? And I thought, well, that's not interesting to the world. So I went back and watched the pilot.
Okay. Okay. You did.
Extra credit. Melody.
There you go. Extra credit. You get more than a gold star for that.
I mean, how nerdy is doing something for extra credit?
That's the nerdiest thing you can do.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we could start with the pilot very, very briefly, because I was very interested that the tone really does change.
It does, yeah.
The pilot is dark and atmospheric, and this character, Wynonna's coming back to this town she swore she would never go back to, and she's back there, and the curse takes over, and her sister is kidnapped, and she decides, okay, fine, I'll stay and I'll kill all these revenants. That's the plot of the pilot, basically.
Yeah.
But there were one-liners, but they were subtle. There was nothing goofy about this, whereas in seasons 3 and 4, it was very over the top. Like, the tone just shifted in those seasons.
It did, yeah, for sure.
And I don't know why, because I'm such a comedy lover. I'm a comedy nerd, but I preferred this dark pilot tone.
Interesting.
More. I wrote
I can kind of
times
see that,
like,
though.
come on, get dark. Like, I was craving this when I was watching the other episodes.
And now I wish that there were, because now there are a couple episodes that come to my mind that do get dark, and now I wish I would have recommended those to you.
But who knew?
Exactly. But I can see where you're coming from, though, that in the later seasons, the humor is a little more larger than life, and it is a little more natural in the first season. So I can kind of see why you would prefer the darkness to the over-the-top humor.
Yes. So the sister is kidnapped, and Wynonna goes to find her. And when she finds her, she's being held captive, hanging by a noose by the revenants. And Wynonna says, "Are you hanging in there?" And it's so small. And I loved it. And I laughed out loud. And, it was just, I love that the town is called Purgatory. The music is fantastic on this show. They use a lot of female artists and country and rock. And it's very driving and exciting music.
I discovered a lot of artists.
Oh, did you?
No, not really. I did. Just from watching the show, I was always looking up, like, oh, who's that? I need to listen to that. Like, the music is great.
I should have done some Shazamming because I was into it.
All the episode titles, with the exception of the pilot, I believe are country song titles.
They are. I wrote that down as a fun fact. In my research. So when she gets to this town, this guy finds her, and he's a vague detective, and he's not with the FBI or CIA. It's a little more Men in Blacky than that. And then he says he's with the DDB, the Demon...
Or the Black Badge Division.
Black Badge Division. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
His last name is Dolls.
Dolls, yep.
So sexy, and then he's gone. What are you doing, Melody? Where did he go? Don't say he died.
Oh, I don't want to crush your hopes and dreams, but...
He died.
Yeah.
Oh.
Spoiler alert.
Is he not so
in season
handsome?
3, he is very handsome. He's actually that actor. I think it was his choice to leave the show because he ended up getting a lot of, like, he's a regular, I think, on an Apple show. It's a sci-fi show. So he's doing a lot of work right now.
Well, I miss him. Shamir
I do too.
Anderson.
Shamir Anderson, yeah. He's great.
Oh. If you're out there, Shamir. I mean, I'm a happily married woman, but...
but...
Okay. Yes. So that was my summation of the pilot, and it was very well crafted and easy to follow.
Yeah.
And I got the history. They did some flashbacks to their childhood when their older sister Willow was kidnapped by the revenants, and they said killed on a mountaintop or something. But I'm convinced Willow comes back in future episodes. No?
Oh.
Or do I smell a spinoff that I'm going to write?
No, now I want you to write the spinoff. He does. He does.
You just feel it, that she was dragged through a window screaming, and then they're like, and we never saw her again.
I mean, it's like that TV rule, no body, no death. Like, if you don't see the bodies, the character really gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You're right.
That's also my motto whenever I'm arrested. Okay. So now we can go to the episodes you assigned me, but I just wanted to brag that I went and watched the pilot. I'm getting applause. Okay, so this episode is called I Fall to Pieces. I won't sing, but God, do I want to. And Wynonna and Nicole, who is Waverly's betrothed, Wynonna and Nicole realize how much they depend on luck when they find themselves clean out of it. While they chew over the consequences of their failed errand for Sheriff Nedley, Mama becomes party to Doc's secret.
Yes. I chose this episode particularly because it showcases Wynonna and Nicole's friendship really well. Because they have that, like, odd couple-esque dynamic. You know, Nicole is she eventually becomes the sheriff of Purgatory, but at this point she's still deputy. And she's this kind of straight-laced type character, and Wynonna is wild and out there. And so I like this episode particularly because of that element, but also there's that really sad scene between Wynonna and Doc. I think it's this episode.
Doc Holliday.
Mustache guy.
Yeah, Mutt from Schitt's Creek.
Yes!
Oh my
Mutt
God.
from Schitt's Creek!
The minute I saw him, I was like, it's Mutt! It's Mutt! Okay, a sad scene between them. Yeah, I was so confused. They have a daughter?
I bet.
That we never see the daughter?
So Wynonna gives birth to their daughter at the end of season 2.
Okay.
And they send her daughter away because purgatory is not safe. Mm-hmm. So her daughter goes to live in Montana, I believe, with their Wynonna and Waverly's aunt. So that's where the daughter is off screen right now. She's
okay.
So she's out of town. And then Doc becomes a vampire in season 3.
Yes.
But Wynonna
one in season 1?
No.
Okay.
He's immortal in season 1, when you see him like crawling out of the well, he had been trapped in that well for like 170 years or so.
Oh, that sucks.
And he was put in there by a witch cursed him. So he was immortal, but then he lost his immortality and he missed it. So he convinced an ex-wife who's a vampire to turn him into a vampire so he could stay immortal.
Okay. It's a lot.
As one does.
Yes.
It is a lot, yes. But so Wynonna finds out he's a vampire, is not a fan of that, and then uninvites him
to the
from
party?
Her house. Like she kicks him out.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, these
But I mostly wanted to show that
are so spare. They just don't really do anything for you. They don't give any color or,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. But I mostly picked that because that scene in particular really showcases Melanie and Tim's acting, and they're just so good together, and their chemistry is so amazing. So that's mostly why I picked it.
He's one of those guys that could have chemistry with a cardboard box, right?
100%.
Yeah, he just oozes sexuality and
100%
strength, and because I remember he did nothing on Schitt's Creek to make to make Alexis really like him. He just smoldered.
No,
that was all. He was
just hot.
Yeah,
hot and shirtless, and that's it.
Well, this episode started with a bang. Get it? People banging in a truck.
Yeah.
So I got a sense of Wynonna pretty quickly. She spreads it around. She's unapologetically sexual and aggressive and gets what she wants, and as she should. But it definitely. So they're banging in the truck, and Nicole is saying, "I should be the sheriff." And the retiring Sheriff Nedley says, well, you have to go ask Bunny, the woman in charge of the town, and she'll say yes or no or something, get her blessing. And it was there were so many storylines and things happening, and there was sex and there was anger and there were feuds.
I bet it was a little confusing. Yeah.
Yes, but it also felt like a soap opera. And so when I was I was looking up Wynonna Earp and getting descriptions, and I found a thing that said, in the second season, Wynonna discovers she's pregnant, while Waverly struggles with possession by a demon and doubts her lineage. At the same time, 2 sister-wife widows of the dead sheriff who cursed Wyatt Earp seek to resurrect him. And I wrote, well, that was basically Marlena's storyline on Days of Our Lives throughout the 80s and 90s. She was possessed by the devil. She was kidnapped. She was, it's like, it's so...
I remember my stepmom watching Days of Our Lives when I was a kid, and I would like see bits and pieces of it, and I had no idea what was happening.
Right. A lot of this. And I'm not saying this is ripping it off. I'm just saying it's like...
No, I get what you mean. When it is very dramatic.
A Western, supernatural Western television series, I'm not imagining all the sex and the affairs and the lies and the secrets. I thought it would be more violent and more serious and dark and twisted, and it's not.
Definitely not. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think it has something for everybody. But to me, it's just this, like, the special effects aren't that great. definitely not something you're going to see on like Max or Prime Video. But I think that's part of its charm. That's why it reminds me of Buffy, like something from the 90s. It's campy, it's kind of corny, it's silly. A lot of dick jokes.
There's a similar, I said this about Supernatural too. Were you a Mighty Morphin's Power Ranger fan growing up?
I did watch it. Yeah.
The bad guys look like those bad guys. Some of the effects look like
You're
Mighty
right.
Morphin Power Ranger
Oh
effects, which were
man.
notoriously
Especially like
cheesy.
Yeah, especially Supernatural's earlier seasons.
Yeah.
100%.
But that's part of the fun, you know?
Mhm.
I think that allows us to buy into such a ridiculous premise about Wyatt Earp, and now she has the Peacemaker, the gun he used, and that's the only thing that can kill the Revenants. And
Yeah.
that's a lot to buy. But if it's campy and fun, we buy it, you know, and that just frees us
100%,
up.
yeah.
So you casually dropped names like Melanie and Tim. You have interviewed these actors?
I actually have, yeah.
What are they like?
So they were really nice. I actually interviewed them last month. They had that Wynonna Earp Vengeance when that came out on Tubi, that like movie event. When I told you to start with the show and not with the movie, because I think that, and the movie does introduce the characters, but I think the show gives you a better idea of who they are. But anyway, it was for Vengeance, and these press days are a lot of fun, but sometimes they're a little stressful because it's like, it's, you know, it's online and you get like 10 minutes with each group, and then you have somebody in the chat box like telling you, okay, you have 2 minutes left, like basically hurry up, last question. So it was a little stressful, but it was a lot of fun. I got to talk to them, and I talked to Dom, who plays Waverly, and Kat, who plays Nicole.
Wow.
So yeah.
And this, I mean, this isn't making them household names, but this is probably the thing in their careers that has established them and given them, you know, I've seen Melanie because I'm a big fan of Ready or Not, so I recognized her right away.
Oh yeah, and she's in Star Trek right now too.
Oh, okay. So, but what I'm learning and loving about the fandom of sci-fi and fantasy, and it's just how connected they are to these actors, to the writers. You know, there's such a communication and a relationship that, please forgive me, also exists for Bravo, and you know, those people go to conventions for the housewives and all of that.
Well, yeah, they do.
Yeah, but you know, fans of shows like this really have access, really can you know, be a part of it, and I think it's so. That's what makes it so special and so meaningful to people. You know, I'm watching, if I'm a disenfranchised kid who's getting made fun of at school, and I'm coming home and watching these things that make me feel empowered and seen, and then I can actually access the people who are making it. It's just, it's wonderful. Such a give and take.
And this cast in particular is really interactive with the fans. And like they, you know, there are fans that show up because now there's all of these Wynonna Earp conventions that are popping up. And so they go to all the conventions, and, you know, they know fans by name, and it's a really close, like tight-knit community. And it's something that I've never really seen a cast of a show do before. I've never seen them be this close to the fandom and a part of it. Like they love the show just as much, if not more, than the fans. Like they've
so great.
Because the show has been plagued with near cancellations, and then there was a 2-year break between season 3 and 4 where there's some kind of holdup with the rights, I think, with IDW publishing, and then Sci-Fi's like, okay, you're gonna get season 4 and 5, and then they canceled it after season 4, and then, you know, 3 years later we get this movie on Tubi. So the fans and the cast have been rallying really hard to bring the show back. Yeah. So,
and what's
it's
season
that
4 left hanging?
No, I mean, yes and no. Like, I think that they were given enough advance notice that they could tie some loose ends.
Mhm.
And it could serve as a series finale, but then there were also some loose threads that could be explored in a future season, or some of it is kind of touched on in the movie, but the way the movie is written, it's more like an introduction for new fans. Like they kind of
Okay.
wanted a fresh slate. Like, okay, here, you if you want to jump in during the movie, that's great. So so there's definitely some loose ends that they can explore in a fifth season, but it also is a good bookend.
Good. Yeah, I think it just robs people when something is canceled,
Yeah.
and people are left hanging. It's
Mm-hmm.
the saddest thing I've ever heard. Forget war and famine.
All right.
Being left hanging.
Forget all that.
That's just the worst. Well, one thing I was very impressed by in my initial watch, I Fell to Pieces, season 3, episode 7, the dialogue is so zippy. It's so fast paced. And Wynonna is such a wise ass. It's just, maybe that is Buffy, but I've never seen Buffy. So to me, it was like, I don't know that I've seen this kind of quippy, fast-paced dialogue delivered by badass women as they're kicking ass. It's really fun. It's different. It was different.
It is. Yeah, I would say that it's definitely inspired by Buffy, because watching Buffy, it's the same thing. The dialogue is very snappy. It's fast-paced. Buffy's has all these one-liners while she's kicking ass and killing vampires. So it is very similar.
Okay.
So that was an appeal for me, because that's something I really enjoyed from Buffy, was the dialogue.
Yes. When the girls, the Nicole and Wynonna are in a biker bar with the Revenants. Are the Revenants always bikers?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. They just end up as bikers for some reason.
Like intimidating, just because I think we would
Yeah.
all be intimidated walking into a biker bar. But the girls go in,
Yeah.
and Wynonna says, we'll compete with you. And the guy says, what are you good at? And Nicole answers, Golden Girls trivia? And I thought it was so funny. Wynonna said drinking,
Yes, I love
like
that.
a real badass.
Of
And Nicole's
course.
like Golden, and you don't know me, Melody, but I am pretty much a Golden Girls fanatic.
Yes.
But that's my area of expertise.
Not so brag.
And I was watching these women play these roles, and I thought, oh God, these are dream roles. Just all of the women get a chance to kick ass. They all get chances to be vulnerable. They're all funny. It's just really good for those actors.
Yeah,
Jealous.
for sure.
And then I got very confused, as is often the case, by the gnome in episode 7. What the hell was a gnome doing? He kept appearing.
The gnome. Okay, so there are all those artifacts.
Right.
There are all those artifacts that they were going through.
Right.
And, they were experiencing that string of bad luck. So I'm going off my memory right now.
Oh, God help me.
Because Netflix, so, they changed their ad plan. They have like ads now,
Okay.
which is ridiculous. But now there's like licensing rights with Wynonna Earp, and you cannot watch it unless you upgrade to the next plan that doesn't have ads. And it's really stupid. So
I'm a fancy
okay.
pants, and I have the ad-free version, I guess.
I'm actually thinking I'm going to go to ad-free just so I can still watch Wynonna Earp.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm going off of memory. Okay, so we're watching this whole episode, and I'm following it all, and then this gnome appears a couple of times.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It felt just like a C story or a D story that they crammed in.
Yeah.
It was like, what, do they do this? Is it just every episode there's some wacky extra thing happening?
No. I think that I would say like season 3 and 4, it did get a little wackier, and they did cram in some extra stories. But I I wouldn't say that that's usual. Like seasons 1 and 2, I think, were a little more streamlined, a little more simplified.
Yeah. Well,
For sure.
yeah, this episode was wacky and enjoyable and extra, but then there was such heart. Nicole discovers that Nedley, the sheriff, the current sheriff, saved her as a kid. And I was so moved by their realization or by her realization. He's been keeping it a secret, I guess.
Yeah.
So it had
they develop like a father-daughter relationship too as it goes on. So that I know I'm a daddy's girl, so I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
It was very sweet, and I saw real heart, which I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
I had just seen heightened, tone and snark. But that was a real
tone and snark. Yep.
Yeah, but I really got the heart of the show in that moment, and that was really lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are ready to move on to our next episode, and we're gonna start talking about season 4, episode 7, called "Love's All Over." I don't know the song, but I know it's a country song. And this description is just terrible. I'm not even going to read it. Basically, Waverly and her betrothed, Nicole, are going to have an engagement party. And then there's this magic spell that makes everybody fall in love. If a piece of glitter falls on you, whoever sees you just...
It's Cupid.
Okay, Cupid is causing people to fall in love.
Yeah.
Just with whoever they see. So it's a lot of funny. It's very over the top. Just a lot of, really fun people hitting on other people. And a character name I mentioned in the first episode was Bunny, and she's the uptight councilwoman or whatever her title is. Do you know her title?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, what is she? Yeah, she's a councilwoman.
She basically runs the town, and she's
basically
tight middle-aged lady who is homophobic and xenophobic and just all around disgusting.
Yeah.
And then I realized from the credits, because I can read, the actress's name is Jan Arden. Now, some people might be saying, who's Jan Arden? Pete, play Insensitive by Jan Arden.
That's funny. That's funny to think that I would actually play that song on this podcast because, copyright. It's really funny that this song ends up being used in the show, and Mandy is fantastically enthusiastic about her love for Jan Arden. But I have to tell you, all of that is wrong. The show is wrong. Mandy's enthusiasm is wrong. The best song off of the album, Living Under June, by Jan Arden is Good Mother. I dare you to go listen to it, all you children of mothers, and not start bawling. Fantastic song. And Insensitive is great, and I'm glad it was in the show and all that, but come on. Good Mother for the win.
I loved this song when it came out in the 90s. I was so into it, and she was a badass. She was not a middle-aged, uptight woman named Bunny. She was like, that and Meredith Brooks' Bitch were the two songs that I learned on the guitar first and just loved.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Couldn't believe she was playing this character. It's a ton of fun. So in the first one, she's homophobic, xenophobic, and terrible. And now she falls madly in love with Waverly.
Waverly, yeah.
Yes. And in so doing, gets up at the bar and plays Insensitive on the guitar and starts to sing. It's just, who knew? Do you have any idea why Jan Arden is such a big part of the show? And then they even make a Jan Arden joke, which I did not care for.
Fun. It's interesting because that's, I knew who she was. I knew of the song, but I wasn't that familiar with her as a musician, mostly just as an actor and as a comedian. I'm guessing she's just friends with Emily Andress, and maybe that's how she got involved, because it is kind of random. I know she's Canadian. She does a lot of Canadian productions.
Oh, okay.
So other than that, I really don't know why.
Well, they make one joke before she starts to sing, and they're like, is she drunk? She's going to start to think she's Jan Arden again. And that's kind of self-referential joke I am not on board with. I was like, nope.
I gotcha. Yeah.
You can't do that, Wynonna Earp. I won't allow it. But I have a very important question for you. In the first episode, we meet Nicole's cat, Calamity Jane, and then they mention, oh no, Calamity Jane is gone. Do I not want to know what happened to the cat in season 3?
I don't know if you want to know what happens to the cat. Not in season 3.
And Deputy
in season
Doll
4.
They're together in heaven.
I hope so. Yeah. I'm gonna say they're together in heaven.
Don't kill really hot guys and cats.
And cats.
Come on. Yeah, I was like, uh-oh. They're referring to Calamity Jane in the past tense. And when the theme song came on for this episode, I realized how deeply I love the theme song.
It's great, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
And they do, in the season 3 finale, they have like a stripped down version of the song that they play that's really pretty. That I almost like more than the original. Yeah.
I like the original. It's got drive. It's
fun.
Yep. So Bunny falls in love with Waverly and says the phrase, I haven't really gayed at all. But I thought that was such a funny way to phrase it. I haven't really gayed at all.
I haven't really gayed.
Right?
I also like this episode too because I think it's this episode. Nicole corrects Bunny and says that Waverly's bi, not gay, which I thought was a really nice distinction.
I didn't notice it.
I think it was this episode.
Yeah, in season 1, Waverly's with a guy named...
She has a boyfriend, yeah. Champ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This episode was so over the top with the falling in love, and it didn't seem to have a place in the through line of the season to me.
Not really. Right? Season 4 is kind of... There are a lot of standalone episodes. I feel like there is like an overarching narrative, but there are a lot of standalone stories. Like nothing, some that are just like, okay, this isn't really connected to the season as a whole. I've seen some complaints on Reddit that season 4 feels a little too fan servicey, and I can kind of see why. Not saying I agree with it 100%. I do like season 4, but I can see why. There are a lot of like, and I think part of it too is just because the fans fought so hard to bring the show back,
right,
for season 4. So, and I think the crew, this was their way kind of saying thank yous. There were all these little like inside jokes and Easter eggs that might kind of be hard to follow if you're just jumping in as a newbie. Right. But I do agree. Yes, it doesn't. The episode itself doesn't really connect that much to the season as a whole, except for the engagement party part of it.
Right. Yeah. I guess there's also Nicole and Waverly, because I only saw, 2 or 3 episodes with them as a couple. There was so much proving they were a couple. And I was a little like, I get it. You're a couple. You're in love. Some people have a problem with it. Some people don't. I get it. But I have a real and it's like, hey, babe, I love you, babe. What do you want, babe? It's like I was just like, we get it. You'd be a more believable couple if you weren't so all over each other all the time.
I think I agree with that. I think the movie does a better job of kind of establishing them as like, okay, they've, at this point, they get married in the season 4 finale. So at this point, they've been together a couple years. So they're not like, they're still lovey-dovey, but there isn't so much of that undercurrent of needing to prove, like you said, that they're a couple.
Right.
They just are.
Right.
And I think part of that too is that in season 1, Emily Andress decides to subvert the bury your gays trope by having Nicole get shot at, but we see she's wearing a bulletproof vest. And so then the whole joke, I guess, is that the Nicole, Waverly, and Jeremy, who's gay, they call them the Unkillable Gay Squad. And that became kind of the whole like thing for the show. So I think that's maybe why they go in that direction with them as a couple, just because there are a lot of genre shows in particular that kill off gay characters. So I think it was just to prove that, they're safe. Nothing is going to happen to them, which is nice.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's why they act that way a little bit.
Well, I think
but it is toned down.
I think it's a little tropey in a lot of shows, and not gay couples, but all couples. When we're watching a couple who can't stand next to each other without kissing and calling each other babe, to me,
agree.
It's
100%.
cringy to me. But that's just because I have a heart of ice, and my poor husband can't touch me.
But I do. I do agree. It's just couples in general just tend to be like,
yeah. And I think, I wonder if for the writers, for Emily Andress, if it's like, well, hey, we've seen this kind of couple on TV for however many years, and it's always a straight couple who's so over the top and PDA. Now it's our chance. So I wonder if there's a little bit of comeuppance to it. So they go through the engagement party. Cupid is putting a spell on everybody. They figure it out. Everybody goes back to normal eventually. And then the end of the episode, there's a young girl that Doc finds at the side of the road, and she's throwing body parts in a well. I was really...
I think I know who that is. Does she have like dark brown hair?
Yeah. Beautiful young mixed race actress. But I was like, what? Why is she? And she's like, that's right, I'm coming. And the episode ends with her throwing body parts down a well.
Yeah, I think that's Cleo. The character's name is Cleo. She was in episode 3 of season 4, I believe, or she's in the beginning of season 4, and she's kind of recurring throughout.
Okay.
I think that's who that is. So she
Cleo
is
Clanton.
Cleo Clanton. Yep. And then the Clantons, I think they're in the first half of season 4. They're kind of like the villains.
Okay.
And they have a thing with, or they take their vengeance out against the Earps, particularly for what Wyatt Earp did to their relatives or ancestors during the shooting at the OK Corral. So
it's
there's
real
a little
history.
It's real history. Yeah. So there's some real history incorporated into the show, like, with Doc Holliday and so forth. So Cleo does not like Wynonna, does not like the Earps. So at this point in the season, they're enemies. And so what she's doing is she's feeding some of the Clanton relatives, I believe, who are almost like zombie-like characters.
At the bottom.
It gets a little confusing. Yeah, they're at the bottom of the well, so it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what that is.
Well, I don't know. Personally, I like that there are no rules, because now we've already mentioned vampires, revenants, zombies, witches, cupids.
Werewolves, yeah. There's some werewolves too.
Bring them all on. There's no reason.
Bring them on.
Once you decide it's not a realistic premise, you're off to the races. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I often say about this stuff, it's always like a game of yes and. There's no rules. There's no, well, you can't do that.
Good improv. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, let's make them zombies. Sure. So, and then, so this is the Halloween episode. And there's a Hellraiser
the next
time.
one.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a Halloween episode.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I was talking about the girl throwing the body parts, and that was the end. And then now we're in Hellraiser Good Time, season 4, episode 8. Wynonna and Waverly have a Halloween they'll never forget as Rotten Jack terrorizes Purgatory. And Rotten Jack is like a weird Billie Jean is not my lover, dancery, pumpkin head.
It is. It's very Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah. And played by a woman. I looked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah. She's very dancery. And she just wants to go around murdering people on Halloween. And one of the people she murders, she knocks on the door, and a housewife comes out to the door and says, "Oh, what a great costume." And and Rotten Jack pitchforks her through her gut.
Oh, yeah.
And she says, but I have brownies in the oven. And then she
Yeah.
and I was LOL. Loved it.
I loved that moment too. Yeah.
And I love
It's just a
this episode
sorry, go
was
ahead.
very standalone because it was about Rotten
Mhm.
Jack terrorizing them. But there
Yeah.
was also threads of the BBD, and
Mhm.
I thought this one was a better representation of how you continue your story season long,
I agree with that. Mhm.
but have this specific adventure that needs to happen and get resolved. This time,
Correct,
it's
yeah.
Waverly and Wynonna who are paired up, and they
Mhm.
go to see their buddy Casey, who is Kimchi from Kim's Convenient.
Yes.
Convenient. And even, I love him. I think he's hilarious on that show. And Wynonna says, like, oh, that's convenient. And I thought that was an nod, but it was subtle enough that I'll allow it. And he accidentally
that's
gets
good.
them so high that they don't know who they are anymore.
Yeah.
So they're Melody,
Yeah.
I'm seeing a darker side of you. You're like, yeah, man. Yeah. This is very comedic. They're running around town knowing which one's which or what they're doing. And they're dressed up for Halloween as Britney Spears. And it's fun. It's really fun. But they eventually kill Rotten Jack. Rotten Jack. But in the meantime, the BBD is experiencing like an emergency, and we get to go to headquarters where Jeremy, a character I mentioned, works. But I saw him in the first episode, and then here, he's so sweet. I love that guy.
He's a great character. And he has some fun scenes too on the show.
And so it was his boyfriend whose mind was erased or something, and now doesn't know that they're boyfriends.
Yeah.
That's so sad. Yeah. So I liked being I always like a nebulous headquarters or lair, just knowing where everyone's gathering to either cause crime or fight crime. So I liked being in the headquarters. And do we get to be there a lot more or not really?
Not really. That's actually one thing I wish the show leaned into a bit more was we do have the Black Badge stuff in season 1, and season 2, we meet more characters from that division and they kind of become more of a presence. But then it isn't really until season 4 that we get an actual headquarters. Like at one point, Wynonna, Waverly, Nicole, they all become members of Black Badge, but they just operate out of like the sheriff's office in Purgatory. Like, but season 4, they actually have an established presence. And then Jeremy gets promoted to deputy director at the end of the season. And so if the show continues, that's one thing I would like to see, is just see him in his element and, you know, pulling the strings. But I really enjoyed that too.
Is
Sorry, go
there a
ahead.
chance the show will continue?
I hope so.
We still don't know.
They just had the movie, but we don't know if, Tubi will greenlight a season 5 or if they'll do another movie. I hope so, because again, the movie ends incredibly open-ended, even more so than season 4. So now I'm like, well, if they don't come back, I'm gonna be pissed. Like, we gotta tie up some loose ends, people.
I mean, the way things are going these days with every series ends and then they get a reunion in a movie and then they're back rebooted. It's crazy. Anything is possible, Melody. Our beloved shows can live on forever and ever.
True.
Well, this episode did feel a little darker with the pitchfork through the guts. And, there was a little more intensity to some of the Rotten Jack stuff. And I liked that. And then they made a reference to a movie that I keep hearing referenced, and I feel like it should be next on my list, The Babadook.
That's one I haven't seen. I know what you're talking about, but I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, it seems to be the nerds' favorite horror movie. Like, a lot of really nerdy horror lovers talk about The Babadook, and I've never seen it.
It does get referenced a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to watch it too.
even in the new Scream reboot, Jenna Ortega, he's like, what's your favorite scary movie? And he's like, is it Halloween? She's like, no, it's Babadook. Or Babadook. Am I saying it wrong?
Maybe Babadook.
Babadook. Anywho.
Not sure.
I was wondering if you were going to have strong opinions about that, because I think I need to.
No, I don't.
Well, yeah, that's our 3 episodes plus my bonus points for my pilot watch.
Your bonus points, yeah.
So what is it you love about this show so much that if someone said, what is it, or why should I watch it? How would you sum that up?
I think I love the humor. I love the campiness and the silliness aspect of it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And it does have those darker elements. I think it has just a little bit of everything. I like the supernatural Western twist, even if the show doesn't always lean too hard into it. The performances are so good. The cast, you can tell that they all just love each other off screen, because that chemistry really translates on screen, I think. And I think it's a show about empowerment and finding yourself, finding your confidence and who you are. And Wynonna definitely goes on that journey.
Yeah. And it's a show about drinking.
And it's a show about drinking.
Oh my gosh.
And good music.
A lot.
She does. I was like, how? I don't even think in my wildest party days I'd be able to keep up with her.
As a mom, I just want to talk to her. She needs to cut back.
Have a good talk. And
yeah.
I mean, she does kind of get, like, Waverly and Nicole do stage a little bit of an intervention later in season 4.
Do they?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little overdue. Yeah.
From it. Yeah. So it does happen.
All right. Well, I'm going to share my business with the world, and then you can tell people where they can reach out to you if they want to learn more about what you write and see your writing.
Good.
So Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM, engineering by the peerless Pete Wright. My theme song is Wonderstruck by Jane and the Boy. You can reach out to me on socials at Mandy_Kaplan_Clavin on Instagram. Clavins with an S. Those are both with Ks. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a review. Write a review, leave the 5 stars, and engage with me that way. It's real easy and a great way to make suggestions or add your opinions to this conversation. If you are feeling extra supportive and nerdy, please go to makemeanerd.com and hit the join button. And $5 a month gets you your episodes 1 week early and ad-free, and more access to me and this nerd fest that I'm trying to establish. So where can people reach out to you, Melody, if they want to?
On Twitter, which I will always call Twitter.
Yes.
It's not X in my head. Twitter
strong.
and Instagram. Yeah, I'm going to stay strong. Twitter and Instagram, just at Melody McCune. Boring.
MCCUNE.
MCCUNE. But if people want to follow Geek Girl Authority, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Threads. Just Geek Girl Authority with the exception of Twitter. That one is at Geek Girl Auth.
Nice. There was another Geek Girl Authority on Twitter that took you.
I don't know. I have to ask Audrey why that is.
How dare they? Well, thank you so very much for exposing me to a whole new world that I knew nothing about. I really appreciate it. And you are such a delight to talk to. My next episode will be with Justin Jager from the True Story FM family. And I'm starting my Marvel MCU journey with Loki. So I'm going to watch the first episode of Loki if you all want to tune in to that. Well, thank you, honey. It was really great meeting you and talking to you. And I will sign off until next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.